Scientists have discovered a new chemical that's associated with cardiovascular disease, and they think it may be the key reason why we develop so much heart disease. And it's not related so much to the cholesterol and fat in our foods, but it's related to this chemical called TMAO that we produce in our intestines when we eat foods that have carnitine in it, which is an amino acid that exists in mostly meat foods, red meat, or choline, which is another essential nutrient for your brain that exists in a lot of protein foods, especially eggs. And so I found it fascinating to dig into this research to try and figure out what it was actually all about. And so what happens is that when you eat certain foods, it reacts to the microbes in your gut to produce levels of TMAO. And high levels of that can cause a thickening of your arteries and inflammation. But what they also found was that vegans or people on a vegetarian diet produce very, very little levels of that chemical. So you would think, well, it has to be produced just because you're eating animal products, or you're eating foods with carnitine in it, or you're taking these supplements somehow. Well, actually, that's not true either. What you really find out, what it's all about, is that you produce this chemical when you're eating a poor diet over a long period of time. And how do they figure this out? Because it turns out that depending on the bacteria in your gut, you will either produce high amounts of it or none at all. And the bacteria that it's related to is the type of bacteria you produce when you have a high junk food, sugar diet based on chemicals and not actually eating real food. You produce a type of bacteria called Firmicutes, which makes you crave sugar and causes your body to just always be making you want to eat more sweet things. And it's a type of bacteria that grows when you're consuming way too many empty carbs, too much sugar, too many grain products, and it throws your whole system out of balance, because Firmicutes is supposed to be a bacteria that's in low amounts in your digestive system. The main bacteria you're supposed to have is something called Bacteroidetes. And that type of gut microbe, when you consume these same foods, does not produce TMAO. And that's the type of bacteria you're supposed to have, but you probably might be low in it because it's dependent on fiber in vegetables. It's dependent on eating whole foods that actually have nutrients in it and contain natural fiber. It's not made by just dumping fiber in a drink that you want to have or just taking capsules of fiber. It's made by consuming whole foods, mostly greens and vegetables, that contain their own fiber. It ferments in your gut and it grows this beneficial bacteria that then does not produce this chemical that could be associated with cardiovascular disease. So basically what they're saying is that it's not the food that you actually eat, it's the reaction to the type of bacteria you have in your gut. And so if you're eating a plant-based whole food diet, eating fish, chicken, meat does not produce that chemical that's associated with heart disease. The interesting thing was that the one food that's most associated with producing high amounts of TMAO is fish, which is the main food the medical establishment tells you to eat for cardiovascular disease. So does that make sense to you? But they also know that when you eat fish and you have a high or the correct amount of the beneficial bacteria in your gut microbes, you don't produce any of it. Or it's a very, very low amount that doesn't impact your health at all. So what does this all mean? What does all this information really mean? It basically means is that we create our healthy environment or our unhealthy environment every single time we make a food choice. It's our food choices and how our body actually reacts to that that creates our health. It's not the single one food. Our complex bodies run really well when we put things in it that are beneficial to our health. And when we're eating a diet that really has no nutrition in it, and it's all man-made food, things that are manufactured from chemicals with a few food nutrients put together to make something that tastes sweet that we then crave, and we put a lot of it in our body. When we live off that type of food, it throws our internal environment into chaos, and we create the wrong type of microbes that then create or produce toxic chemicals that impact every level of our health. But we think, because we're a science that's based on finding one thing that causes everything, we think it has to be the egg that we ate, or the fish that we ate, or the meat that we ate. And the reality is, it's our own internal environment that can create toxic foods out of anything that we eat, based on how we've treated ourselves over a long period of time. Because this is how you create beneficial bacteria. It's not the meal you eat once in a while. It's what you predominantly eat over a long period of time. And if you want to change the balance of your bacteria in your gut, have a few probiotic live foods, eat a lot of vegetable matter, a lot of plant food closest to its natural state, meaning steamed vegetables, salads, that type of food. And over time, and not that long, your whole internal environment will change, and you'll have a different reaction to almost every single thing that you eat.